The testimonies featured on this channel are presented as received, reflecting the personal experience and perspectives of the individuals who have generously shared them with us. We encourage our viewers to approach these testimonies with compassion and understanding, as these are personal testimonies of people involved. We also encourage you to always refer to the Holy Bible and the teachings of Jesus Christ and his apostles for guidance. You can consider subscribing to the channel to support our ministry. Like, share, and comment with the country you are watching from. Watch to the end, because what you are about to hear will challenge your belief.
Tonight, you are about to hear a testimony unlike anything you've encountered before. A story of royalty, betrayal, forbidden faith, supernatural escape, and a kind of courage that only comes when a soul is pushed to the very edge of life itself. It is the story of a Saudi prince born into unimaginable privilege, power, and protection, yet hunted by the very people meant to love him the most. A prince who dared to read a forbidden book. A prince who dared to question everything he had been taught. A prince who was sentenced to die, publicly, by his own blood. But death did not claim him. Instead, something happened on that execution ground that defied every law of nature, every rule of the kingdom, and every plan of those who wanted to silence him forever. For the next 5 hours, he will walk us step by step through his journey, through fear, through isolation, through miracles, through nightmares, through revelations, through the desert, through a prison cell, through encounters he still struggles to explain, and through the moment the sword was lifted above his neck, but never came down. His name is Prince Kabir al-Hassan al-Rahim. And before he begins, I want you to prepare your heart, your mind, and your spirit, because this is not just a story. This is a confrontation with truth, wrapped in fire. Now, let's hear from Kabir.
My name is Prince Kabir al-Hassan al-Rahim. I am 31 years old, born into a lineage that stretches back centuries. A lineage of rulers, warriors, judges, and guardians of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But the strange thing about being born into royalty is that it teaches you very early what you are allowed to see and what you are never meant to discover. From the outside, my life looked perfect. Palaces with walls so tall they could hide the sky, floors polished until your reflection looked back at you like a stranger, marble columns, golden lanterns, embroidered carpets, servants gliding like shadows, and guards who never smiled. People think royal life is freedom. No, it is a cage made of diamonds. I grew up in Medina province, in a palace built by my great-grandfather. The air there always smelled of frankincense, desert wind, and the faint metallic scent of the soldiers' rifles. My father, Prince Sanir al-Rahim, was a man who commanded fear by simply entering a room. His footsteps alone could silence a conversation. His voice could freeze the blood of a disobedient servant. My mother was the opposite, soft, quiet, and gentle in a way that was almost dangerous inside our world. She taught me compassion in secret, giving bread to the poor, listening before speaking, showing mercy even when it wasn't convenient. My father hated this part of her, though he never admitted it. Strength, not softness, was the currency of his kingdom. From childhood, I memorized the Quran, trained in weaponry, learned diplomacy, recitation, Arabic grammar, royal protocols, and the strict etiquette of our bloodline. My life was structured hour by hour, breath by breath. But even as a child, I sensed something was wrong. Not with the world, but with me. There was always this emptiness, A quiet hunger my prayers didn't satisfy, a restlessness the palace walls couldn't silence. I was taught that questioning anything was dangerous. But silence felt even more dangerous. By the time I turned 17, I had mastered everything a prince was expected to master, except peace. That was the one thing I could never find. When I reached 20, my father decided I should study abroad for a year, not to learn, but to observe how outsiders lived so I could one day govern over people who thought differently. I chose London. I told him it was for the political science program, but the truth, I wanted to breathe, to think, to exist without being watched by 50 pairs of eyes. My father agreed on one condition. I was not to let Western beliefs pollute my mind. I agreed because refusing was not an option. The first shock came the moment I stepped into Heathrow Airport. Nobody bowed. Nobody looked down. Nobody whispered my titles. In fact, nobody cared who I was. For the first time in my life, I felt small and strangely free. During my first semester, I met a young woman named Liana. She was Syrian British, studying psychology. Not Christian, not Muslim, just searching, like me. One rainy afternoon, she asked me a question that made my heart tremble. Kabir, do you truly believe everything you were raised to believe, or do you believe it because you were never given a choice? Her words hit me like a blow. No one had ever dared to speak to me like that. I didn't answer. I couldn't. A few weeks later, while studying in the library, I saw her reading a small book with a plain black cover. She placed it on the table before leaving, and curiosity led me to flip it open. The Gospel of Luke. My hands began to shake. In my country, being found with such a book could mean imprisonment. For a prince, even worse, execution. But I wasn't in Saudi Arabia. Nobody knew me here. I read one sentence. Jesus said to the man, "Your sins are forgiven." And I froze. Forgiven? Not weighed, not recorded, not punished. Forgiven. I closed the book instantly. My heart raced. I felt like I had committed a crime, but something inside me ignited, a flame I couldn't put out. For weeks, that single sentence haunted me. Your sins are forgiven. 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 I began secretly reading more. Quietly, slowly, always afraid someone would see. Not because I wanted to change my faith, but because something in those words felt alive. But the real turning point came one night in my dorm room. I was reading a passage where Jesus healed a man tormented by fear, and suddenly, without warning, the lights in my room flickered. The air grew cold. A presence entered the room, not seen, but undeniably felt. It was as though someone stood behind me, watching. I dropped the book. My breath caught. I turned around, but no one was there. Liana later told me, with no fear in her voice, "Kabir, sometimes the truth shakes the darkness around you." I did not understand then, but I would. Months later, I returned to Saudi Arabia with that same small book hidden deep in my luggage. I told myself I would never read it again. But I did. Every night. And that was the beginning of my downfall. One evening, my father summoned me unexpectedly. He held the small book in his hand. My book. The Gospel. I felt the blood drain from my body. He said nothing at first, nothing. Just stared at me with the coldest eyes I had ever seen. Then he whispered, "You shame this family. You shame Islam. You shame me." I tried to speak, but he raised his hand for silence. "Do you deny you have been reading this?" I could have lied. I almost did, but something in me refused. I said, "Father, I only wanted to understand." His face hardened like stone. "Understanding is not your duty. Obedience is." That night, 2 royal guards dragged me from my room. No explanation, no warning, no mercy. They took me to an underground chamber beneath our palace, a place I had only heard whispered about, a place used for traitors. I thought they would torture me, but what came instead was worse. A judge, 2 imams, and my father sat at a long stone table. My father refused to look at me. The imam read a list of accusations. The main one: possession and reading of the Christian Bible. Apostasy was implied. Death was implied. I was sentenced without trial, without defense, without dignity. The execution date was set for the next morning at Dura Square, publicly. I asked my father, "Why? Why are you doing this?" He finally looked at me. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not fear for me, but fear of losing control. He said, "Because one disobedient prince can destroy an entire kingdom." I was dragged away as my mother screamed behind closed doors. She was forbidden to see me. That night in the cold underground cell, I did not sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't pray properly. I simply sat on the floor, waiting for death. I thought about the gospel, the healings, the forgiveness, the love, and for the first time in my life, I whispered the most dangerous prayer a Saudi prince could ever pray. "Jesus, if you are real, do not let me die tomorrow." And that prayer, that single whisper in the darkness, changed everything. Because when they led me to the execution ground the next morning, something happened. Something no one in Saudi Arabia had seen in decades. But that moment, the sword, the crowd, the sky, the storm, I will tell you all of it. But first, you must understand how close I came to losing my sanity before dawn. Because the hours before my execution were the darkest hours of my life.
When the guards dragged me back to my room that night, I felt the weight of 1,000 destinies pressing on my chest. I was the daughter of a prince, yet I was treated as the greatest shame my family had ever known. The very walls whispered my sentence: execution for reading the Bible. I remember sitting alone on the cold marble floor, my wrists bruised from the ropes, my heart breaking more from betrayal than fear. My own father, my protector, my teacher, my hero, had condemned me. I kept asking myself one question: how can love turn into death so quickly? But even in that darkness, something strange began to happen. The air in the room shifted. It felt as if someone had entered, though the door never opened. I could feel warmth spreading across my shoulders like a blanket being gently laid over me. I knew it wasn't a guard. This presence carried peace, an unexplainable peace. Then I heard it. Not with my ears, but deep inside my spirit. A whisper. "Fear not. I am with you." My tears changed. They were no longer tears of despair. They were tears of recognition. I had heard that voice before, in the secret nights when I read the Bible under my bed sheets with a flashlight, trembling with both fear and hope. I didn't see him physically, but I felt him. The more he drew near, the more the fear in me broke apart like sandcastles in a storm. The ropes around my wrists loosened by themselves. I gasped and stared at them. No one had touched them. I remember whispering, "Jesus, is that you?" A wind, not from the window, not from any visible source, blew over me, and for the first time since my arrest, I felt alive. But deliverance was not immediate. Outside my room, I could hear the guards discussing the next morning's preparations. Words like execution, confession, dishonor, apostasy filled the hallway. They had already dug the pit. They had already chosen the date. My name was written on the order. I only had hours left. Yet the presence in my room made me stand up. My knees were shaking, but my spirit was steady. Jesus didn't free me from the prison that night, not yet. But he freed me from fear. He made the walls of that palace cell feel smaller than his promise. He whispered again, "Hour by hour, I will deliver you."
The palace slept, but my spirit was wide awake. It was past midnight when hour 3 began, though in that room, time felt strange, as if heaven and earth were wrestling over every second of my life. I sat on the edge of the small iron bed, listening to the quiet hum of the air conditioner and the distant footsteps of patrolling guards. My execution was scheduled for the morning. Every tick of the clock sounded like a countdown. But something unusual happened in that hour. The atmosphere shifted again, stronger this time, heavier, as though the unseen realm had drawn closer. My breath caught in my chest. I wasn't afraid, but I felt small before something vast and holy. The lights in the room flickered once, then twice, then everything went dark. Not the kind of darkness that makes you uneasy. This darkness felt like a curtain being drawn before a revelation. I heard a soft sound behind me. Not footsteps, wings. I froze. My heart hammered, but a deep warmth swept over me. Then, slowly, the darkness began to glow. No lamp, no bulb, just a gentle white light rising from nowhere and everywhere at once. Out of that light stepped a figure, tall, radiant, unmistakably not human. His voice felt like thunder wrapped in velvet. Princess Amani. No one in the palace called me that with such dignity anymore. I looked at him, trembling but unable to speak. "The one who called you has sent me." I swallowed hard, whispering, "Jesus sent you?" He nodded once. "You will not die tomorrow." When he said those words, something broke inside me. Something heavy, something that had been choking me since the day of my arrest. The fear dissolved like mist. I asked him, "But how? The order's signed. The soldiers are ready. My father—" He lifted his hand, silencing my panic. "Heaven has issued a different order." My whole body shook. Then he touched the wall with one finger, and the stone rippled like water. I gasped, covering my mouth. The angel looked at me with eyes that carried eternity. "When the hour comes, you will walk through what others call impossible." "What hour?" I whispered. "The 5th. Then the light intensified, blinding but peaceful. When it faded, he was gone. The lights flickered back to life. The room looked exactly the same, except the wall he touched still shimmered faintly, as though marked by another realm. I fell to my knees and wept, not in fear, but in awe. Hour 3 ended with one overwhelming truth burning in my chest. Heaven was preparing a rescue, and the palace had no idea.
Dawn came too quickly. The call to prayer echoed across Al Medina, drifting into my cell like a reminder of the world that had rejected me. The sky outside shifted from deep blue to pale gold, and with it, the reality of my scheduled execution pressed against my chest like a stone. Hour 4 was the hour of tension, the hour where heaven and earth seemed to stare at each other, waiting to see who would move first. I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. I sat on the bed, staring at the wall the angel had touched. It still carried a faint shimmer, like a veil waiting to be lifted.
Then I heard the metallic click of the door's outer bolts. My heart jumped. The guards were coming. The two men who usually escorted me stood outside. I recognized their heavy boots, the way they cleared their throats before entering, the coldness in their voices. But this time, something was different. They were whispering. I pressed my ear to the door. "Orders changed?" one muttered. "No," the other replied, "just delayed. The prince wants to be present." My father, the one who had condemned me. For a moment, fear gnawed at me. So human, so sharp. But then I remembered the angel's words, "You will not die tomorrow." And this was today. I stepped away from the door just as they opened it. The guards stared at me strangely, as if unsure whether I was a prisoner or something else entirely. One of them pointed at my hands. You removed the ropes?" he asked. I looked down. The ropes that had been tightly tied since the last interrogation now lay on the floor like dead snakes. I didn't answer. How could I? Would they believe an angel untied them? That heaven itself walked into the palace? They exchanged uneasy glances. Fear flickered in their eyes. Not fear of me, but fear of what they didn't understand. "Princess, you must come with us," the older guard finally said. I stood up. My legs trembled, but my spirit didn't. As I stepped forward, I felt a pressure behind me, soft, powerful, invisible. It walked with me, the same presence from the night before. As we left the cell, the light hallways flickered. The guards cursed under their breath and tightened their grip on their weapons. We walked toward the inner courtyard, the place where prisoners were processed before execution. I knew the path well. I had memorized every tile, every lantern, every archway since my sentencing. But this time, something strange happened. Every guard we passed looked at me and stepped back. Not out of respect, out of fear. One of them dropped his baton. Another refused to make eye contact. As we moved deeper into the palace, whispers spread like wind. "She's glowing." They were right. I didn't notice at first, but the closer we got to the courtyard, the more I felt heat radiating from my skin. Gentle, warm, like a hidden fire. Then, halfway to the courtyard, the ground shook. A small tremor, just enough to make the lamp sway and the guards freeze. One of them shouted, "What was that?" But I knew. My deliverance was already in motion. The palace courtyard was silent when we arrived, not the usual disciplined silence of royal guards, but the kind born from fear and confusion. The tremor had unsettled everyone. The sun was rising slowly above the palace walls, casting long shadows across the ground. This was the hour marked for my death, but heaven had marked it for my escape. The guards held me on both sides, but they no longer looked at me with anger. Their hands trembled, their breaths came shallow. Every so often, one of them would glance at my face and look away as if something too bright was staring back. Then the massive iron gate to the execution grounds began to open. Its hinges groaned like a beast awakening. Beyond it, I could see the small group gathered, the officials, the clerics, the soldiers, but the one who made my heart twist was standing in the center. My father, Prince Rashid, the man who sentenced me. His expression was unreadable, stone-like, cold, determined. He had chosen honor over blood, reputation over daughter. The guards pushed me forward. My feet touched the sand of the courtyard, and that was when it happened. The shimmering on the wall from the night before, the place the angel had touched, began to glow again, even though it was far behind me. Light pulsed from it like a heartbeat, starting softly, then growing stronger, brighter. One guard gasped. Another shouted, "What is that?" My father turned sharply, eyes narrowing. Then the wall split. Not cracked, not shattered. It opened, like a curtain being pulled back. Beyond it was no room, no courtyard, no hallway. It was a radiant corridor of light stretching into a place the palace had never known. The same angel stepped through. His feet didn't touch the ground. The moment he appeared, chaos broke out. Soldiers screamed, clerics dropped their books. Some ran, others fell to their knees. My father staggered backward, his face draining of color. The angel spoke, his voice echoing like thunder rolling through eternity. The hour has come. Everything around me froze, the guards, the wind, even the dust in the air, held still by something far greater than human authority. The angel extended his hand toward me. "Walk." My legs moved before fear could argue. The soldiers tried to stop me, but their bodies wouldn't obey. Their arms hung limp at their sides, their eyes wide with horror. Even my father stood motionless, tears forming but unable to fall. I walked across the courtyard. Each step felt heavy with destiny. When I reached the center, the invisible force holding everyone still lifted just long enough for one voice to break through. My father's. "Amani, forgive me." It was barely a whisper. A single tear fell down his cheek, something I had never seen in my life. I stopped and looked at him. My heart broke and healed, all in the same breath. "I forgive you," I whispered. Then I turned to the angel. He stepped aside, revealing the glowing corridor behind him. "Your path is open. Walk through what others call impossible." I stepped into the light. Warmth covered me like a cloak. The palace disappeared. The fear disappeared. The sound of chains, accusations, threats, all gone. My execution became my exodus. The corridor closed behind me, sealing my past on the other side. When the light finally faded, I found myself miles away from the palace, standing on a quiet desert road beneath an open sky. I was alive, free, delivered.